Begin to question what you know about trust in relationships. Perhaps it's what remains unseen that is slowly eroding your connection. Prepare for information that may completely alter your perception of how partners interact. Have you ever considered that, statistically, approximately 85% of men fail to notice infidelity on the part of their partner? This figure is shocking and forces us to reflect on how well we truly understand what is happening in our relationships. Many are confident in their ability to recognize signs of unfaithfulness, but the reality is that most signals go unnoticed. Women, in turn, possess an astonishing ability to conceal their true intentions and emotions. But why does this happen, and how can these signs be recognized in time to prevent negative consequences? You might initially think this information doesn't apply to you, but is it wise to be so certain? Have you thought about the subtleties in your partner's behavior, the words she speaks every day that you take for granted? We are now going to delve into an area many prefer to avoid. We will discuss hidden truths that may be right in front of you, yet you fail to see them. It's crucial to remember that knowledge is power. If you are committed to developing and protecting what you value, this path of discovery may be challenging, but it is necessary. After all, the most dangerous blindness is that which is caused by the fear of seeing the truth. So, let's get to the essence. Men, pay close attention. What you are about to hear could be the key to understanding female behavior. We won't be talking about stereotypes or cliches, but about subtle manifestations, emotional strategies, and phrases that, upon careful analysis, reveal far more than meets the eye. Imagine you've been in a relationship for many years. Everything seems stable, but there are subtle changes that are hard to pinpoint. Your partner avoids certain topics in conversation or changes the subject when you bring up sensitive issues. Perhaps you're missing important signals. And this isn't just about physical infidelity, but emotional as well. You've probably heard that women are masters of concealing their intentions. This isn't just a common saying. When it comes to infidelity, women often act more subtly and strategically than men. While men might leave obvious traces of their unfaithfulness, women possess an almost artistic talent for masking their actions. They don't just hide what they do, but skillfully justify it, making it nearly impossible for partners to realize what's happening. Ask yourself, how many times have you ignored a feeling that something was off? How many times did you choose to believe words, even when they didn't align with actions? It's important to understand that this isn't about becoming paranoid or suspicious, but about being observant. Be aware that words often carry a subtext, and that's precisely what we'll explore today. 6 common phrases women use during infidelity that, due to their seeming simplicity, often go unnoticed. These phrases appear harmless, but can carry immense meaning. Before we get to the list, let me tell you a story. A man, after many years of marriage, began to notice small changes in his wife's behavior. She often mentioned a colleague from work, but he didn't pay it any mind, as she had always been faithful, and he trusted her. One day, she said, "He understands me so well." The man simply brushed it off, finding it amusing. But a few months later, when their marriage fell apart, he realized how significant that phrase had been. This example shows that small phrases and comments can be important signs. And you're about to learn what each of them truly means. But before we begin, consider, have you ever heard similar phrases without paying them due attention? Perhaps you ignored a warning that could have changed the situation. Stay with us, as revelations await that will help you see your relationships in a new light. You won't want to miss a single detail. Now that you understand the importance of paying attention to behavioral nuances in relationships, let's delve deeper into this topic. Have you ever wondered how someone manages to conceal their true intentions for so long, remaining unnoticed? This is where the art of concealment comes into play. People lie not only with words but also with gestures. Consider a simple example. Imagine you come home after a long day at work. Your partner arrives later than usual and says, "I was with my friends." Sounds perfectly innocent, doesn't it? But what if this situation starts to repeat regularly? What if she starts meeting friends more often but doesn't share details about where she was or what she was doing? Small changes in behavior can go unnoticed, but they matter. It's important to understand that most people don't lie openly. They do it subtly, strategically, so the lie remains virtually undetectable. This is called emotional manipulation, and it often begins with phrases that seem simple but have a hidden meaning. A very common statement is, "I need time for myself." This request for solitude may seem perfectly reasonable, however, it often serves as a tool to create emotional detachment. Let's consider a specific example. Juan and Anna had been together for over 5 years, and their relationship seemed stable, at least in Juan's eyes. Suddenly, Anna began to express a need for more personal time, wanting to do things alone. Juan, seeking to be understanding, supported her in this endeavor. However, he didn't realize that during these moments of time for herself, Anna was growing closer to someone else. When the truth was revealed, Juan was devastated. This is a classic example of emotional infidelity, which begins with such seemingly harmless phrases. Another telling example is the phrase, "Don't worry, I'm just spending time with friends." This phrase is often used to mask suspicious activities. The point is not to deprive a partner of socializing with friends or going out, but to pay attention to patterns. If stories don't align, schedules raise questions, or you notice a growing distance, these are alarming signals that cannot be ignored. It's important to remember that this isn't about control or suspicion, but about vigilance and awareness of what's happening. We often trust words because we don't want to face a painful truth. However, ignoring warning signs can have devastating long-term consequences. Consider a situation many have faced. Your partner starts talking frequently about a colleague, for example, "My colleague is so funny," or "My colleague understands my difficulties so well." At first glance, this might seem innocent, but if mentions of this person become frequent, it's worth being wary. When someone outside the relationship begins to occupy significant emotional space, it can be a precursor to problems. As an illustration, I'll share a real story. Marcos had been married for 10 years and always trusted his wife, until she began constantly talking about a new colleague. At first, he didn't pay it any mind, but over time, he noticed that conversations about this colleague became more frequent. When he expressed his concerns, his wife denied any connection. A few months later, Marcos learned about her emotional affair with the colleague. The problem was that he ignored the warning signs, fearing he would seem paranoid. The bottom line is that people who are hiding something often try to downplay the suspiciousness of their behavior using excuses that seem perfectly reasonable. However, if you feel that something is wrong, trust your intuition. Let's consider another common phrase, "I'm working late." This is a classic excuse for absence. If your partner starts using this phrase frequently, pay attention to changes in their daily routine. Ask yourself, has their work schedule truly changed? Are there valid reasons for so many overtime hours? A lack of logic or inconsistencies in their stories can be an alarming signal. It's important to pay attention not only to the words but also to your partner's reaction to your questions. If they become defensive, evade answers, or change the subject, it could indicate hidden problems. To conclude this section, I'll give one more example. Imagine that during an argument about your relationship, your partner says, "You deserve someone better than me." At first glance, this phrase might seem like an expression of humility or regret, but often it carries a deeper meaning. It can be a way to pave the way for a breakup or alleviate guilt for an action taken. Think about it. Why would someone say you deserve better? This phrase suggests that they are aware of their shortcomings or a lack of full commitment to the relationship. It's like saying, "If you want to leave, I'll understand." It's important to understand that each of these phrases carries significant emotional weight. They are not said by chance, and understanding their hidden meaning can be crucial. The art of concealment is a skill many possess, even without realizing it. Minor lies, subtle hints, and changes in behavior can be clear signs of trouble, but you must be ready to see them. Ignoring these signs might seem more comfortable in the short term, but in the long term, it can cause irreparable damage. In the next section, we will explore ways to interpret these signs and the actions you can take to protect your relationship. Further events could become a turning point in your personal life. Now that you understand the importance of paying attention to subtle signs of emotional detachment, let's delve deeper into the phrases that most often reveal hidden behavior. Each of these phrases, however simple it may seem, carries a hidden message that can drastically change the course of a relationship. Before diving into the analysis, it's worth reflecting on why some people prefer to conceal their true feelings, avoiding a confrontation with reality. Perhaps it's the fear of hurting loved ones, apprehension about consequences, or simply an attempt to maintain the illusion of stability in an inherently doomed situation. It's likely a complex cocktail of all these factors. But regardless of the motivation, it is crucial to learn to recognize the hidden meaning in these phrases to see the true picture of what's happening. Take, for example, the phrase, "I don't want to bother you." At first glance, it seems like an expression of care and an effort to avoid conflicts or unnecessary worries. But is that truly the case? Or is this phrase merely a smokescreen, hiding deeper problems? Imagine a typical situation: your partner begins to exhibit new, uncharacteristic behavioral traits. They become more withdrawn, avoid certain topics and conversations, or seem emotionally distant. When you ask, "What's wrong?" you get the reply, "Don't worry, everything's fine." And when you try to find out the details, that very phrase comes out, "I don't want to bother you." This seemingly gentle gesture can be a way to keep you from uncovering a truth your partner isn't ready to reveal. What exactly are they trying to hide? Why do they prefer you to remain in the dark? Another example is the phrase, "I feel overwhelmed." Again, this sounds like an innocent and even perfectly justifiable statement. After all, who among us hasn't felt overwhelmed? However, in some cases, this phrase is used as an excuse to justify emotional distance or changes in behavior. When someone says they are overwhelmed, it can be a way to avoid responsibility in a relationship or even to justify actions that would previously have been unacceptable. Let's look at a specific example. Claudia and Ricardo had been together for 8 years. Lately, Claudia had frequently complained about feeling overwhelmed with work and household chores. Ricardo, striving to be a good partner, took on some of her household responsibilities to ease her burden. But he didn't suspect that Claudia was using this as an excuse to justify her increasingly frequent absences. She would say she needed time to relax after work, but in reality, she was using that time to meet another man. When Ricardo learned the truth, he was devastated. He realized he had ignored the warning signs because he trusted her words too much. This story raises an important question: how willing are we to unconditionally believe excuses? And why do we so often choose to turn a blind eye to obvious things? Another common phrase, "I just want to be happy." It seems like a simple and understandable desire, doesn't it? But when someone uses this phrase to justify sudden changes in behavior or unexpected decisions, it's important to carefully analyze the context. This statement is often a sign that the person has already made some emotional decision that could have serious consequences for the relationship. Think about it: if your partner says they just want to be happy, what does that mean? Are they unhappy in the current relationship? Is something in your relationship preventing them from feeling happy? This phrase, however innocent it may seem, can be the beginning of emotional distancing or even a precursor to a breakup. And most importantly, often those who hear this phrase don't realize that it contains a hidden request for change or an admission that something is wrong. Now, let's move on to one of the most insidious phrases, "I need to understand who I am." This phrase is often used as an excuse for distancing or a sudden change in behavior. When someone says they need to rediscover themselves, it can mean they are looking for something their current relationship can no longer offer. Think about it: what makes a person feel the need for self-discovery? Is it truly a sincere desire for self-development, or simply an excuse to seek new opportunities outside the relationship? In many cases, this phrase is a prelude to a breakup. It's a way to prepare a partner for the inevitable without directly revealing true intentions. Consider another example. Pedro and Vanessa had been together for 6 years. Lately, Vanessa had started talking about wanting to travel alone, try new things, and understand who she was. Pedro, wanting to support his beloved, encouraged her explorations. But he didn't know that Vanessa was using these opportunities to establish new connections outside the relationship. When she finally decided to break up, Pedro realized that all the signs had been there from the beginning. He simply didn't want to notice them. Such behavior is quite common. People are so emotionally invested that they refuse to believe in impending trouble, but ignoring warning signs doesn't make them disappear. And now, the logical question arises: how to distinguish an innocent phrase from a warning signal? The answer lies in the context. Pay attention to changes in behavior that accompany these phrases. If you notice contradictions, inconsistencies, or a lack of clarity, it's time to start your own investigation. In healthy relationships, the foundation is open and honest communication. Often, alarming signs are vague excuses, persistent requests for personal space, or phrases that hint at something more than what is being said aloud. Ignoring intuition in such situations can have consequences. If something feels suspicious, it probably is. Every word spoken in a relationship carries an emotional charge and a hidden meaning, capable of having a profound impact. Understanding the true meaning of these words is the first step toward protecting the values that are dear to you. It's important to understand how to react to such signals, what to do when you have a premonition that something is wrong, and, most importantly, how to maintain emotional health in such situations. This information can fundamentally change your perception of relationships. Many breakups don't happen suddenly, but gradually. Emotional detachment rarely announces itself openly. It manifests slowly, first innocent excuses, then strange behavior, and eventually, a person realizes their loneliness in a relationship that externally appears healthy. This is what we will discuss next. It's important to delve into aspects that often go unnoticed until it's too late. Statistics may surprise you. Approximately 70% of people who engage in emotional infidelity admit that the reason was a feeling of emotional absence from their partner. It's worth considering how often in relationships routine dulls attention to the emotional needs of another person. By the time this disconnection is realized, serious damage may already have been done. The story of Mariana and Eduardo can serve as an illustration. Their marriage, which seemed strong from the outside, began to crack when Mariana felt that Eduardo was no longer giving her due attention. Conversations became formal, expressions of affection rare, and she gradually began to feel invisible. At a work meeting, she met someone who made her feel seen. Despite the lack of physical intimacy, an emotional connection formed, and soon Mariana found herself more attached to this person than to her own husband. This story may sound familiar to many. Who among us hasn't felt ignored? The danger is that often the partner is unaware of what's happening. It's common to hear phrases like, "I didn't know she was unhappy," or "everything seemed fine." So, how can such a development be prevented? How can signs of estrangement be recognized before they become irreversible? The answer lies in analyzing small changes. Consider one of the most common phrases in such situations: "I just need time to think." At first glance, this statement may seem harmless and understandable, as everyone sometimes needs time for reflection. However, context is crucial. If this phrase is uttered suddenly, without prior discussion of problems and concerns, it could be a sign of deeper issues. Another example: avoiding important discussions. Imagine a situation where one partner tries to discuss the future of the relationship, while the other constantly changes the subject or states an unwillingness to talk about it right now. This can be a way to avoid emotional confrontation, but it can also indicate that a decision has already been made unilaterally, and only the moment of announcement remains to be delayed. Why do people avoid confronting their feelings? The reasons can vary, but they often boil down to fear of hurting the other person, fear of consequences, or, in some cases, fear of admitting their own feelings. A study conducted by Stanford University showed that in long-term relationships, people tend to avoid difficult conversations for up to 2 years before finally deciding to address the problem. Imagine the consequences of 2 years of silence, excuses, and emotional detachment. This is time when the relationship could still have been saved if an honest conversation had taken place. The example of Carlos and Fernanda illustrates this problem. In the last months of their 7-year relationship, Fernanda began talking about needing personal space and wanting to spend more time with friends. Carlos, striving to be an understanding partner, agreed. However, Fernanda used this time to explore her feelings for another person. When she finally decided to break up, Carlos was devastated, realizing that he had ignored all the warning signs out of fear of confronting the truth. This story raises an important question: how to distinguish a genuine need for personal space from a sign of estrangement? The answer lies in the actions that accompany this request. If the person continues to communicate, show interest, and maintain connection, it's likely just a temporary need for solitude. However, if the request for personal space is accompanied by prolonged silence, a lack of interest in the partner's life, and evasion of important conversations, it's worth being wary. Another aspect that deserves close attention is unexpected metamorphoses in digital behavior. If a loved one starts spending a disproportionate amount of time on gadgets, jealously guards their messages, or changes passwords without explanation, this can serve as an alarming signal. This is not about unauthorized intrusion into personal space, but about paying careful attention to behavioral changes that were previously uncharacteristic of daily life. Concluding this section, it's worth considering: often, the signs of emotional detachment are right before our eyes, but we prefer to ignore them because the truth can be painful. However, silencing the problem does not solve it. On the contrary, it allows it to grow unnoticed until it's too late to change anything. Awareness of the signs of emotional detachment is vital for preserving what is dear to us. Don't wait for a loved one to directly state the problem. Pay attention to subtle changes, to phrases that seem innocent but contain a hidden meaning, and, above all, trust your intuition. Next, we will discuss how to react to detected signs, how to overcome the heartache of discovery, and how to protect your emotional sphere in such situations. This information could be crucial for the future of your relationships. We have arrived at a crucial point: how to act when you discover signs of estrangement or face emotional infidelity. How to cope with the heartache of discovery and, more importantly, how to maintain your emotional well-being in such circumstances. We will approach these questions from a practical and sensitive perspective, offering concrete steps that can help you rebuild trust and gain clarity in the face of relationship problems. First and foremost, acknowledge that the pain you are experiencing is real. Realizing that someone you trusted might be emotionally distant or hiding information is a devastating blow. It is natural to feel anger, sadness, confusion, and even guilt. It's important to understand that these feelings are part of the healing process. Suppressing them only prolongs the suffering. Let's consider an important question: what to do when you realize something is wrong? The answer: do not confront immediately. Instead, you need to process your feelings before initiating a conversation. Imagine the following situation: you notice your partner is pulling away, using phrases that indicate estrangement, or changing their behavior. Your first reaction might be to demand an explanation. However, an impulsive approach can trigger a defensive reaction or emotional withdrawal. Instead, focus on understanding your own feelings. What truly bothers you? What do you want to say when it's time to talk? Now let's consider a practical approach. Start with an open conversation. Choose a calm time when there will be no distractions, and openly share your concerns, but without accusations. For example, instead of saying, "You're hiding something and pulling away from me," try saying something like, "I feel like we're drifting apart, and that worries me. Can we talk about it?" This approach invites dialogue rather than forcing the other person to become defensive. What if the other person denies these signs or downplays your concerns? This is a crucial moment. You cannot control the other person's actions, but you can control your reaction to them. Consider a fundamental concept: emotional boundaries. By setting clear boundaries for what you are willing to accept and not accept in a relationship, you protect your well-being. If, after an honest conversation, the other person continues to distance themselves or deny problems, it's important to understand when it's time to prioritize your well-being. A story illustrating this happened to Anna, who had been in a relationship for 9 years. She began to notice that her partner became more distant, both physically and emotionally. After several attempts to talk, he refused to acknowledge the existence of problems. Anna then made the difficult decision to set boundaries. She was no longer going to tolerate uncertainty in the relationship. This decision was not easy, but it was necessary to protect her emotional health. You might be wondering, is it possible to rebuild trust after emotional detachment or betrayal? The answer is yes, but under certain conditions. This is only possible when both parties are willing to acknowledge the issues and work together to resolve them. Rebuilding trust doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that requires time, patience, and, most importantly, consistency. If your partner is willing to work on the relationship, pay attention to their actions, not just their words. Trust is rebuilt when there's a consistent change in behavior, transparency becomes the norm, and both partners feel safe sharing their feelings without fear of judgment. In the process of building healthy interpersonal relationships, protecting your emotional well-being is a crucial aspect. There are proven methods that can provide effective assistance in this regard. First and foremost, it's essential to seek support from those around you. Open conversations with close friends, family members, or a qualified psychotherapist can offer valuable outside perspectives and much-needed support during difficult times. It's also important to remember the practice of self-care, which encompasses all aspects of well-being, physical, mental, and emotional. Regular physical exercise, meditative practices, engaging in hobbies, and spending time alone are all effective tools for stress relief and restoring inner balance. Equally important is establishing clear boundaries in relationships. Understanding what you are willing to accept and what is absolutely unacceptable is key to protecting your emotional health and preventing potential conflicts. In this regard, it's worth asking yourself, what new things have you learned about yourself in the process of building relationships? Often, in an effort to understand others, people forget the need to look inward. Understanding your own needs, limitations, and expectations is one of the most crucial steps towards building healthy and harmonious relationships. In conclusion, it should be emphasized that everyone deserves relationships based on trust, respect, and genuine emotional connection. If red flags appear in a relationship, they should not be ignored. It's essential to strive for clarity, communicate openly with your partner, and, above all, protect your well-being. Remember, acknowledging a problem is the first step towards positive changes in your personal life.